dry, completely dry. I tried to make sense of it. There had been no trace of her, no wet seat, no water dripping onto the floor. Nothing. It was as if
testicles
she had never
1,
been there
2,
at
3.
all.
Testicles
I
1,
kept
2,
driving.
3.
My thoughts were racing. Who was she? Why was she out there walking
Oh,
towards the cemetery? Was she real? The road stretched out ahead of me, dark and empty. But in the back of my mind, I knew something about that night wasn't right, and it would stay with me long after the rain stopped. If these stories creeped you out, hit that
You
like
took a
button
ghost
and
home, that's
subscribe
all.
for more terrifying stories. Got your own spooky encounter? Share it in the comments. I just want to hear every creepy detail. Don't forget to share this video with friends who love a good scare. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare. I was 12 years old when my family moved to rural Louisiana. My dad had just gotten a new job, and we were leaving behind the bustling suburbs for a quieter, slower life in the countryside. At the time, I wasn't thrilled about it. The idea of being far away from my friends and the life I knew made me uneasy. But my parents kept saying it would be good for us, a fresh start. The house was old, a 2-story wooden structure that creaked with every step and groaned under the weight of the wind. It sat on a large plot of land, surrounded by thick woods that stretched as far as the eye could see. There were no other houses in sight, just trees and more trees. The nearest neighbor, my dad said, was about half a mile down the road. For the first few days, everything was normal.
Wait, that's
We
a free
unpacked our
gift.
things, settled into our new
Beats.
rooms, and tried to get used to the quiet
What's
that
up,
seemed
Beats?
to hang over the place like a heavy blanket.
I am
The silence was almost unbearable.
a variety gamer. Okay, I am versatile.
Just the sound of the wind rustling through the trees.
I play multiplayer, I play Warzone, I did the story mode, or campaign mode.
It began with our dog, Rusty. He was a big, friendly golden retriever who had always been more interested in belly rubs than anything else. But after we moved, he became different. Nervous,
yes sir,
jumpy, always on edge. He would sit by the window, staring out.
You just got off of Warzone.
Up as if he was listening for something.
I was supposed to be on about 2 hours ago.
Long, deep barks that echoed
I was supposed to be on hours ago. So
at first, my parents thought it was just the new environment.
if it's just me by myself, I play in boot camp. I be bullying in boot camp.
But as the days went on, his behavior only got worse. He would refuse to go outside at night, his tail tucked between his legs, and he would growl at the slightest sound. My dad tried to calm him down, saying it was just animals in the woods, but I could tell he was starting to get worried too. And then we met Nolan. It was a Saturday morning when Nolan showed up. My dad and I were outside, working on the fence that ran along the edge of our property when we saw a figure approaching from the road. At first I thought it was just one of the workers who had been helping with the move, but as he got closer, I realized I didn't recognize him. Nolan was an older man,
DMZ 2.0. Oh, you can have DMZ.
With gray hair that was thinning at the top, and a face that looked
you got me on that one, bro.
He wore a faded plaid shirt and jeans that were frayed at the hems.
I don't play no DMZ. I play with one person.
Eyes, pale blue,
I only play DMZ with one
sharp,
person. I don't even have it downloaded.
Calculating.
You can have DMZ.
He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You must be the new folks.
You got me
right,
beat on that one.
Wiping sweat from his brow.
I don't
Just
even have it downloaded
John,
right now.
This is my son.
I only play that with one
Nolan
person.
nodded, his gaze
One
flicking to me
person.
Just a second, settling back on my dad. His name's Nolan. Lived down the road a bit. Thought I'd come by and
You
say
might
hello.
as well, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
My dad
DMZ
said,
Sweaty. You might as well be playing Battlefield.
There was something off about the way he
2042,
did it. Too far,
PUBG.
too quick, like he was just going through the motions. His eyes darted around
You
the yard,
might as
taking in
well
everything.
play
For a moment,
Battlefield,
I thought I saw a flicker of
PUBG or something, bro.
Interest, curiosity, maybe even a little bit of hunger. You folks settling in all right? Nolan asked, still looking around. Yeah, we're getting there, my dad said, forcing a smile. How's the
What's up, Morris? You got another one, or is this a different one?
Y'all be
Is this
careful
someone
out here.
new?
These woods can be tricky, especially for kids.
I seen a spider
There was something in the way he
Twitch
said it that
TV
made my
not too
skin
long
crawl,
ago
but I
too.
didn't
Is that
say
you
anything.
too, or are you someone
I
new?
just
My
stood
bad.
there,
I don't want to get y'all
feeling his gaze
confused.
on me like a weight. My dad must have sensed my discomfort because he quickly changed the subject,
appreciate that
asking
follow.
Nolan about the area, the neighbors, the best places to go for groceries. Nolan answered all the questions, but there was something strange.
I've just been in
about the
here
way he
talking
walked.
to the chat
His sentences
before
were
I
clipped,
start
his
up.
words
I know,
carefully
man.
chosen, like he was hiding
Hitting
something.
this tree, you know what
After
I'm
a few
saying?
minutes, Nolan said his goodbyes and limped back down the road. My dad and I watched him go, and I
see
couldn't
you,
help but
tatted
feel a
baby.
wave of relief when he finally disappeared from view. But the relief didn't last long. That evening, my dad pulled me aside, his expression more serious than I expected. "You need to listen to me, son," he said, his voice low. "I don't want you going anywhere near that man, you hear me?
Zaza.
You stay away."
That's what the children call
I
it.
frowned, confused. Why?
Get lit.
He seemed nice
Saturday.
enough. My dad shook his
Think
head,
I'm
his
gonna go
jaw
to the
tightening.
club. I ain't been to the
There's
club
something off
since
about him. I can't
October.
explain it, but I don't trust him.
Been doing good.
And I
Been
don't
grinding
want
on
you
the
getting
game.
mixed up with him. Understand?
But the sun coming back out
I
now.
nodded, but the unease in my stomach only grew.
Go back
My dad wasn't
outside.
the kind of person to get spooked easily, and seeing him this concerned made me worry even more.
More skills. You
That
stream,
night,
bro?
Rusty started barking again, louder and more
It's
frantic
been
than
about
ever.
a year for
He
you
was pacing back and
since
forth
you
in front of the
blazed
window,
up,
his ears flat against his head, growling at something
or
outside.
since you been to the club.
I tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the glass. I peered out the window, but all I could
solo
see
till
was the
some real
trees
niggas pop
swaying in
up.
the wind, the branches casting long, twisted shadows across the yard. There was nothing out there, at least, nothing I could see. But Rusty knew something was there, and whatever it was, it terrified him. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Nolan's face, those cold, calculating eyes staring back at me. I kept hearing his voice in my head, telling me to be careful, warning me about the woods. And every time I thought of him, a chill ran down my spine. A few days later, I was lying in bed trying to go to sleep when I heard it.
Okay, so it is the same
unmistakable
person.
sound of someone whispering outside my window.
Guess he just followed
At
me from
first, I
his
thought
other
I was
page.
imagining it. It was just the wind playing tricks on me. But the more I listened, the clearer it became.
The
Someone was out
club,
there,
3
just
years
outside
since
my
I
window,
blaze, I drive
whispering my
trucks.
name. My heart started pounding in my
Damn.
chest, and I felt the cold sweat break out
Hey,
across my forehead.
At least
I
you
wanted to call for my parents, but I was too scared to
You making
move,
money
too scared
driving
to make a
trucks.
sound. Then I heard it
Or at
again.
least saving up.
My name, whispered in that same rough, gravelly voice. Nolan.
Yeah, last time I went to the club was for my mom's birthday.
Trembling as I reached for the curtain.
I always party for her
Slowly,
since
I
she's
pulled it
not
back,
here,
just
so I
enough to
party
peek
for her.
outside. What I
But
saw
I'm a
made my
party
blood
animal.
run cold. Nolan was standing in
Shit,
the
3
yard,
years
his
since you
face
blazed.
illuminated by
Shit,
the
3
neon
years ago I
light.
was still
There was
blazing.
something wrong with him. His skin was ashen, his eyes hollow, and he was staring right at me. His
3
head
years ago I
tilted to
was
the side,
blazing.
like he was trying to figure out what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I wanted to scream, but I
3
couldn't.
present years I'm still blazing.
Place. My eyes locked on his, the fear paralyzing me.
This big ass pimple.
And then, suddenly,
This bitch hurt.
he was gone. I don't know how he moved so quickly, but in the blink of an eye,
Face break out after the month that happened. Ain't that some shit?
I jumped out of bed and ran to my parents' room. My heart racing as I banged on their door. My dad opened it, his face rocky with sleep. But when he saw the look on my face, he woke up fast. What a bit fast. His voice urgent. Nolan, I stammered.
Daddy!
He was right outside my window. My
Here!
dad didn't waste any time. He grabbed the shotgun he kept under the bed and hurried downstairs, motioning for me to stay close behind him. He checked every door, every window, but there was no sign of Nolan. The yard was empty, the woods silent. But I knew what I had seen, and so did my dad. The next day, my dad started asking around, trying to find out more
Oh,
about
I'm by
Nolan.
myself.
But the more he asked, the stranger things got. None of the neighbors knew who Nolan was. There was no record of anyone named Nolan living in the area, no one who matched his description. My dad even went to the local police, but they didn't have anything on him either.
You on boot camp? I need to see this.
Exist. That
8
night,
kills.
my parents sat me down and
You'll see whatever happened.
Would you give me a reason?
Yeah, if I'm playing by myself, I'll play in boot camp. It moves faster.
But I
and like a crop top and
every time I looked out the window,
black fabric around my.
I play boot camp when I'm just playing by myself.
Those hollow eyes.
But I do like boot camp. They be sweaty in here. It be a whole bunch of bullies like myself in here.
Lying in bed when I heard the
They
whispering.
be talking trash about
I
boot
opened my
camp. I
eyes
like
and there
boot
was no one
camp.
standing at the foot of my bed.
It
his
move
face
fast.
inches from me.
It move
He
fast
was
too.
whispering my name
That other
over and
shit
over,
moves
his
slow
breath
as hell.
cold on my skin. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. I sat up trying to catch my breath, but the fear was still there, gnawing at my insides. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, we loaded up the car and left the house behind. As we drove away, I looked back one last time, half expecting to see Nolan standing in the yard watching us go, but there was nothing. Just the empty house, the silent woods, and the lingering sense of dread that followed us all the way to our new home. My dad never talked about Nolan again, and neither did I. We tried to put it all behind us to move on with our lives, but I could never forget those hollow eyes, that twisted grin, the sound of his voice whispering my name. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the darkness presses in, I can still hear him, calling out to me from the shadows.
You say baby and name.
Say my name, say my
When
name.
my wife Gianna and I bought our new house, we were filled with excitement.
You
It
acting
was
kinda
everything we had ever
shady.
dreamed of.
Ain't calling
A
me
spacious
baby.
two-story home in a quiet suburban neighborhood with enough room to start a family.
Oh shit.
The house had been built in the 1920s, a classic craftsman style with wide porches and large windows that let in plenty of light. It had character, style, and as the real estate agent had put it, good bones. From the moment we stepped inside, I could tell that Gianna had fallen in love with
Oh
it.
shit.
She was already talking about how she would decorate each room,
No, I don't
where we
be
could put
sure.
our future kids' play area, and how we could turn the attic into a cozy reading nook. I was just as excited, already imagining all the projects we could tackle together to make the house truly ours. We moved in on a warm Saturday morning, the kind of day that made everything feel possible. As we unpacked, the years,
It be like that. This my first game too.
months later.
I ain't even played COD yesterday. What I played yesterday? Assassin's Creed.
We discovered something new. A hidden closet, a forgotten storage space, or a quirky
That was a
architectural
real nigga.
detail that added to the house's charm.
I wasn't
But
no
there
bot.
was one thing we hadn't discovered yet. A door that we hadn't noticed on any of our walkthroughs. A door that led to a room we didn't notice. A few days after we had moved in when we found the door. We had spent the morning unpacking boxes in the living room and decided to take a break to explore the upstairs. We were still trying to get a feel for the layout of the house, so we wandered from room to room,
Damn.
discussing what we could do with each space.
Yeah, a little set
As we
gun.
reached the end of the hallway, I noticed something strange. The hallway seemed to
Slide on
extend
this
further
map.
than I remembered, leading to a small, narrow door at the very end. It was tucked away in a corner, almost hidden behind a tall
They don't be
antique
having them
cabinet that the
Humvees no
previous
more.
owners had left behind. Did you see this before? I asked Gianna, pointing to the door. She shook her head, frowning. No, I don't remember this at all. Do you think it leads to the attic? Maybe, I replied, though I was certain we had already found the attic entrance in a different part of the house. Let's take a look. The door was old,
Kilo on
paint
kilo?
peeling and the wood slightly warped. It didn't match the rest of the house, which had been meticulously maintained. I had to push hard to get it open, the door groaning on its rusty hinges as it swung in.
Oh, fucking mantle, bro.
Almost claustrophobic.
Bitch.
So. The floor was covered with a big layer of dust. There was a single narrow window at the far end, but it was
Oh,
so
shit.
grimy that it barely let any light in. The air was stale, heavy, and the smell of milk and something faintly metallic like blood. Gianna
Oh.
as she stepped inside, her
Oh, my
hand covering her
goodness.
mouth. This is
You
strange,
laying
she
down?
murmured, her voice
You
muffled.
on this pussy?
Why would they block this off? I didn't have an answer. The room felt wrong, like it didn't belong in the house. It was cold, despite the warmth of the day outside. There was a sense of stillness that made my skin
You're
prickle.
just sitting there?
As we explored the room, we found nothing of interest. Just an old broken chair in one corner and a small
Finna just
cracked
sit
mirror
there,
on the
too.
wall. But there was something about the space that made me uneasy, like we were intruding on something that didn't want to be disturbed. Gianna shivered and rubbed her arms, glancing at the door. Let's go.
Ah, I thought I was on
she
Assassin's
said,
Creed,
her
bro.
voice tight. I don't like it in here. I didn't argue. We left the room.
Oh, shit!
I tried to forget about it as we continued our tour of the house. But the memory of that cold, dark space lingered
thought I was
in the
on
back of my
Assassin's
mind,
Creed,
like a
nigga.
shadow that refused to fade. Over the next few weeks, we settled into our new home. Life was good.
Oh,
Better
shit.
than it had been in years.
Oh,
Gianna and I
shit.
spent our evenings cooking together, watching movies, and planning our future. The house felt like a fresh start, a place where we could build the life we had always wanted. But then the noises started. It began with small things, a faint creaking sound in the middle of the night, like someone walking down the hallway. I chalked it up to the house settling, or maybe a draft moving through the old walls. But as the days went on, the noises became more frequent, more distinct. One night, I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it again. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving down the
Damn,
hallway.
my aim.
I opened my eyes, my heart
You
pounding
know I ain't got
in my
no
chest,
aimbot.
and listened. The footsteps stopped outside the bedroom door, and I held my breath, waiting for something to happen. But there was only silence. The next morning, I mentioned it to Gianna, but she just shrugged it off.
Oh, shit.
Old houses
Oh,
make
shit.
noise, she said, not looking up from her coffee. You're just not used to it yet. I wanted to believe her. The unease in my gut told me there was more to it than that.
Why is you going
The
back
footsteps
this
had
way?
sounded too real, too
Level
deliberate,
up. Level
like
up.
someone
Level up. Level up.
or
Level up.
something was walking through the house. As the days passed, the noises continued. Sometimes I would hear the sound of doors creaking open and closed, even though I knew we had locked them. Other times, I would hear a faint
14
whispering,
people
like
left.
someone was talking just
Everybody
out of
must be
earshot,
camping.
their voice too soft to make out the words. But it was the room at the end of the hallway that unsettled me the most. No matter how many
fuck.
times I walked past it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from behind that door. The sense of wrongness that had
Just
permeated
throwing shit.
when we first found it had only grown stronger, and now it seemed to seep into the hallway itself, like a dark, creeping presence. Though she refused to admit it at first. She would glance nervously at the door as we passed it, her steps quickening, as if she couldn't get away from it.
Look at that shock charge. That's
And at
crazy.
night,
Or
she
drill
would curl
charge,
up
whatever
next
the
to me in
fuck.
bed,
Shock charge.
body tense, as if she was trying to shut out the noises that filled the house. But we didn't talk about it. We tried to pretend that everything was
I only got
that the house
6.
was just
Oh, nah.
full of quirks.
It say 8 eliminations. There you go. There you go, beats.
Fueled by the
Right on
unspoken
it.
fear that
I
something
don't
was
know.
very,
Kills. I don't know.
very
Which
wrong.
one is. Oh, you said
The turning
kills.
point
I
came
missed
one
2.
night when I woke up to find Gianna
Fuck
sitting
that.
up in bed, staring
Fuck
at the door.
that.
Her face was pale, her eyes
Uh-uh.
wide with fear.
It-
and her
it's all
hands were
together.
gripping
That's
the sheets
8.
tightly.
Nah.
Gianna, I whispered, reaching out to touch her arm. What's wrong?
Oh,
She
shit.
didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the door. I followed her line of sight, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. There, standing just outside our bedroom, was a figure. It was tall and thin, its body shrouded in darkness, but I could see the outline of its shape, the way it seemed to blend into the shadows. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just stood there, watching us. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't explain it. The figure wasn't real. Couldn't be real. But it was there, standing in our hallway, as real as anything else in the house. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. The figure had vanished, leaving only the dark, empty hallway behind. Gianna let out a
pack your shit,
breath,
Gianni.
her
Let's
body
go.
trembling as
We
she
need
turned
it.
to me. Did you see it? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, too stunned to speak. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. We sat up in bed, holding each other, our eyes fixed on the door, waiting for the figure to return. But the house was silent, the hallway empty. The next morning, we decided we couldn't stay in the house. Whatever was happening, it was beyond our understanding, beyond anything we could deal with. We packed our bags and checked into a hotel. But even there, the fear followed us. Every creak, every shadow, every whisper of the wind sent us into a state of panic. our nerves frayed and raw. We knew we couldn't go back to the house, but we didn't know what else to do. On the next day, I managed to track down the family that had sold us the house, an older couple who had lived there for over 30 years. "The house has a history," the husband said, his voice tinged with regret. "We never told you because we didn't think it was important, but now," he paused, glancing at his wife, who nodded solemnly. "There was a room," he continued, "a room that was sealed off when we bought the house. The previous owners said it was just storage, but we never used it. We always felt strange about it, like something wasn't right." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What happened?" The wife spoke up, her voice trembling. "We had some strange experiences over the years. Noises, shadows, things that couldn't be explained. But it was always centered around that room. We eventually blocked it off, hoping it would stop. And it did, for a while. But now that it's open again..." The husband trailed off, his expression grim. I went back to the hotel, my mind racing. The room had been sealed off for a reason. Something the previous owners had tried to keep hidden. Something they had hoped would stay buried. But now it was too late. We had opened the door, and whatever was in that room had been released. We returned to the house one last time. We didn't want to, but we knew we had to. The fear, the anxiety, it had consumed us. And the only way to stop it was to confront whatever was in that room. The house was silent when we arrived, the air heavy with anticipation. We made our way upstairs, footsteps echoing in the empty hallway.
Oh Lord, not you got a voice changing. Good Lord, free him.
I hesitated, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorbell. Gianna stood beside me, face pierced.
This nigga got a voice.
She whispered, her voice shaking. I nodded, taking a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The room was just as we had left it. Small, dark,
Hell no, brother.
there was something else. Being watched, like something was looking just out of sight. And then we saw it. The figure standing in the corner, its shape barely visible. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just stood there, its eyes, or what passed for eyes, fixed on us. For a moment, I was paralyzed with fear. But then something
I was not ready for that.
control our lives.
I was not ready for
my voice trembling
that.
but strong. "You don't belong here."
Ooh, 22. I called 22. Ooh, wee.
The figure didn't respond, didn't
It's gonna be a great night tonight.
The way the air seemed to fade, I was resisting. And then, slowly, the figure began to fade. It didn't just appear all at once. It was gradual, like a shadow being erased by the light. But as it faded, the room grew warmer. A sense of dread lifting like a fog being burned away by the sun. Finally, the figure was gone. Gianna
You know it.
The room was empty now. The room was just a small, forgotten space in an old house. But we knew that whatever had haunted it was gone. We had faced it. We stayed in the house after that. It took time to recover, to shake off the fear that had gripped us for so long. We did it together. It was just a room now. History, but no longer a threat. Sometimes, when I walk past it, I still feel a reminder of what we had faced. But it doesn't scare me anymore. It's just a part of our story, a chapter in the life we've built together. And as for I don't know what it was or why it was there, but I do know one thing. It's gone. And it's not coming back. But sometimes late at night, when the house is silent and the wind is still, I can't help but wonder, what if it wasn't the only one?
All that breathing hard.
Right, pull him out.
No. I'm talking about on the. Nah.
It was a small, single-story place with chipped paint.
Nah, I got the stories going on.
The kind of charm that made me think I could turn it into something special. The house had been on the market for a while, and I got it for a good price. The previous owner had passed away, and the family had been eager to sell it quickly. I didn't ask too many questions. It was a nice house in a nice neighborhood, and I thought it was a bargain. The first few days were a blur of unpacking and getting settled. There was something almost comforting about the old house, like it had been waiting for someone to come and breathe life into it again. The walls were thick, and the windows let in just enough light to make the place feel cozy, even during the colder, dark
Behind you, your
months.
brother behind you. Oh, shit,
But there was
shit,
one
shit.
thing that nagged at me.
I was doing something, my bad.
No, you
When I
good.
left the house, I made sure to lock the door. It was an old habit, something my dad had
Get him out of here. Get out of my sister,
always lock the door behind you, he'd say, even if you're just stepping out for a minute. So whenever I went out, I'd double check the lock, making sure it was secure before heading on my way.
What you watching on TV?
But no matter how careful I was,
We got the
I'd
scary
come back to
stories and
find the
stuff
door
going on.
unlocked. The first time it happened, I thought I'd just forgotten. I'd been distracted, maybe, focused on the long list of things I needed to get done. But it kept happening. Every single time I came back, the door would be unlocked. At first, I shrugged it off as an old lock that needed replacing. But after a week of this, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong. One evening, after a long day of running errands, I came home with a bag of takeout, ready to crash on the couch.
Not a
and
bag
watch
of
some TV.
takeout.
As usual, I double-checked the front door before leaving, making
Chicken
sure
and rice.
everyone was tight.
Oh,
When I got
don't,
back,
Bunny.
it was slightly ajar. Staring at the door, my mind racing through all the possibilities. Had someone been inside?
That's your
Was I just
brother
being
with the
paranoid?
voice changer.
I
Oh.
pushed the door open. The old hinges creaking. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're not alone. I stepped inside, set everything takeout on the kitchen counter, and did a quick check of the place. Everything seemed to be in order. Nothing was missing, nothing out of place. But the air felt different, heavier, like something was hanging in the atmosphere, just out of reach. As I was about to head to the living room, I heard a noise from the basement. It was faint, barely audible, but enough to make my skin crawl. A soft, rhythmic creaking sound, like wood rubbing against wood. I hesitated at the top of the basement stairs, my hand hovering over the light switch. I didn't want to go down there. The basement was the one part of the house I hadn't fully explored. It was cold and damp, with low ceilings and exposed pipes that made it feel more like a dungeon than a storage space. But the sound persisted, and I knew I couldn't ignore it. I flicked on the light, and the bare bulb cast a dim, yellowish glow over the stairs. The creaking grew louder as I descended, sending a shiver down my spine. When I reached the bottom, I saw it. In the corner of the basement, half covered in shadows, was a rocking chair. It was old, with peeling paint and a sagging seat, but it was unmistakable. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized it. It was identical to a chair I had thrown out before moving in. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. How had it gotten here? Who had brought it into the house? And why was it rocking ever so slightly back and forth? My hands were shaking as I reached out to touch it, but as soon as my fingers brushed against the wood, the chair stopped moving. The basement fell silent, the air thick with the smell of mildew and something else. Something sweet and sickly like old perfume. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest, and hurried up the stairs, slamming the door behind me. I didn't go back down there that night. Instead, I locked every door and window, double-checked the locks, and tried to convince myself that I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep.
Good shit, good shit.
Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the chair rocking back and forth in the corner of the basement. I tossed and turned, the unease gnawing at me until finally I drifted off into a restless sleep. It must have been the middle of the night when I woke up to the sound of creaking. My eyes snapped open, and for a moment I was disoriented, unsure of where I was. But then I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of wood rubbing against wood, coming from the basement. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. The house was dark, the only light coming from the room filtering through the curtains. The sound was faint, but it was there, steady and rhythmic. I didn't want to go down there, and didn't want to face whatever was making that noise. But I knew I couldn't ignore it. Not this time. I grabbed my phone, the small screen casting a weak light as I made my way down the hall. My hand trembled as I reached for the basement door, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I opened the door. The creaking was louder now, echoing up the stairs, each sound making my heart skip a beat. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and slowly made my way down the stairs. The basement was cold, damp, and eerily silent. The chair was still in the corner, exactly where I had seen it before. But this time, it wasn't empty. There, sitting in the chair,
Hell no.
her skin was pale and wrinkled, her hair thin and gray, pulled back into a tight bun. She wore a faded dress that looked like it belonged to another era, and her
Hell
hands were
no.
folded neatly in her
No,
lap.
no,
But it was her
no.
eyes that terrified me the most. Cloudy,
Smokes.
vacant, staring straight ahead, as if she didn't see me at all. The chair rocked back and forth, the rhythmic creaking filling the air. She didn't move, didn't acknowledge me in any way. She just sat there, her gaze fixed on some point in the distance. I couldn't move, couldn't move.
Behind you, behind you,
I was
behind you. Oh, he coming after me down.
Get out of there. But my body refused to obey. And then,
Never
slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. Her
I
mouth
don't
moved,
like this gun so
her lips
much.
parting slightly, as if she was trying to say something, but no sound came out. For what felt like an eternity, we just stared at each other. The creaking of the chair, the only sound in the basement. And then the rocking stopped. The basement fell silent, the air thick with tension. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, the chair was empty. The old woman was gone. I ran up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest, and locked the basement door behind me. I didn't go back to bed that night. Instead, I sat in the living room, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But there was no explanation, no rational way to understand what I had seen. All I knew was that the house wasn't empty, not anymore.
Sniper.
The next morning, I was
ping.
exhausted, my mind clouded with fear and confusion. I knew I couldn't stay in the house, but I didn't know where to go. I felt trapped, like I was being watched, even in the daylight. I decided to do some research, hoping to find some
T1,
answers.
the legend.
I started
I'm doing
with the
good.
previous
How
owner,
are you?
trying to learn more about who had lived in the house before me.
Shite.
It didn't take long to find out. The name
Nah,
was
you
right
the
there on the
legend,
deed.
bro.
Eleanor Martin.
Ooh-wee.
She had lived in the house for over 50 years. A widow who had raised her children there and stayed long after they
No.
moved away. She had died in the house alone, and her children
I'm
had
in the
sold
lag.
soon after. The more I learned about her, the more the pieces started to fall
Glad
into
you
place.
good. How's the
The rocking
game?
chair
It's
had
my
been
fault.
hers,
Sorry,
a
baby.
gift
Nah,
from
you
her
good,
late
T1.
husband.
Not at all.
It
Not
had
at
been
all.
her
I'll
favorite
come
spot
right back. It's
where she
just
could
the
sit
game,
for
bro.
hours, knitting or reading, long after the house
Nah,
had emptied
everything's
out.
good, T1. I'm glad you blessed me with your
I
presence
contacted the
today.
previous owner's
Hope you
son,
had a
hoping
great
he could
stream
shed
today.
some light on what was happening. He was
For sure,
hesitant
for
to talk
sure.
at first, but
It's always
eventually he
love.
opened up.
Shout out to the legend, T1.
My mother loved that chair, he said, his voice tinged with sadness. She spent most of her days in it, even after she got sick. We tried to get rid of it after she passed, but every time we did, it would end up back in the house. We didn't know what to do, so we just left it in the basement.
Always love.
I felt a chill run down my spine as he spoke, the pieces clicking together in my mind. The chair hadn't been brought into the house, it had always been there, waiting for her. That night, I knew I had to confront whatever was in the house. I couldn't live like this. I couldn't go on feeling like a prisoner in my own home.
Where's the gun?
I
They
had to
didn't even
face it
show
no
me
matter
the
how
gun.
terrified I
This glitched
was.
out game.
I waited
Try to
until it was
cheat.
dark, until the house was silent, and then I made my way to the basement. The fear was almost overwhelming, but I forced myself to keep going, one step at a time. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, the chair was there,
Not y'all.
just as I had expected.
Yeah.
It was empty, but the air around it felt charged, like something was waiting. I took a deep breath and stepped closer, my heart
I don't
pounding
know
in
who
my
it's gonna
chest.
bring back.
The chair remained still, the room silent, but I could feel her presence like a cold breath on the back of my neck. And then I spoke. Eleanor, I said,
My game glitched out.
if you're here, I want you to know that this is your home.
Ah, where's the gun at? Ah, this game, my shit glitched. So I'm just
Nothing
running.
happened. The chair remained still.
Wow, my shit is
silent,
glitched
but I
out.
could feel her presence, like a cold breath on the back of my neck. I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat. The chair rocked back
Oh,
and
now it
forth,
wants to
with a creaking
work.
sound from
That's
inside.
crazy work,
But this
bro.
time it didn't feel threatening. It felt peaceful. The room grew colder, the air thickening with the scent of old perfume.
You
And
got
I knew
enough?
she was there. But this time I wasn't afraid. I watched the chair rock for a few minutes,
Damn.
the air slowly ebbing away. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the rocking stopped. The basement fell silent, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew in that moment that Eleanor was
You
at
think
peace.
you don't wanna know that.
The next day, I moved the chair out
I
of the
can
basement
barely
and into
make
the
out
living
what
room,
you
placing
saying
it
with
by
that
the window
voice.
where the
With
sunlight
that
could reach it.
voice, I'm just like,
I never
what?
saw the old woman again, but sometimes when the house is quiet and the wind is still, I hear the faint sound of the chair creaking, rocking back and forth. And I know that
guess
Eleanor
that's
is still there,
better.
watching over her home, just like she always did.
Oh shit. Yeah,
When I first
I
bought
hear
the
you.
house, I
love it! You guys are so great!
It was my first home, a small place that had been on the market for a while.
I was gonna say, who is that?
Nothing too major, just a few repairs and a fresh coat of paint. But that didn't bother me. I was ready to make it my own, to turn it into a space that felt like mine. The house was everything I had been looking for. It had character, history, and enough space for all the things I'd collected over the years. The previous owners had left some furniture behind, old pieces that added to the home's antique charm. There was an attic too, which I planned to use for storage once I had gone through all the boxes I had brought with me. The first few days were a whirlwind of unpacking and organizing.
You a mess. Yeah, when it got to that high pitched voice, I had to turn you down, and I couldn't make out what you were saying no more. It was loud. I was like, no.
The attic was a large, dusty space with exposed beams and a single small
You
window.
good though? You
that
having
let in just
fun? I'm
enough
just
light
like, I
to see
can't
by
understand
during
what
the
you're
day.
saying.
It was cluttered
I
with
hear
old
you though.
furniture,
What about a small voice?
and other odds and ends that the previous owners hadn't bothered to take
I mean, the
with them.
deep voice you can kind of
We
make
didn't
out
think much of it
better
at
than
first.
that high
The
pitched
attic
voice.
was just another part of the house, and I was too focused on getting everything else in order to worry about it. But that changed on the third night. It started with a noise. I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep when I heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from above. It was so quiet I thought I was imagining it. But as I lay there, straining to listen, the sound grew louder, more distinct. It was coming from the attic. I sat up in bed, my heart starting to race. I told myself it was probably just a rat or some other small animal that had found its way inside. Old houses like this were bound to have pests, and I hadn't had a chance to check the attic thoroughly yet. But there was something about the sound that made my skin crawl. Something that didn't feel right. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it was nothing, but the noise continued, persistent and unrelenting. I knew it wouldn't sleep unless I checked it out, so I reluctantly got out of bed and grabbed a flashlight. The house was eerily silent as I made my way to the attic stairs. When I reached the door, I hesitated, my hand hovering.
Jilly did that with my soundboard.
To go back to bed and pretend I hadn't heard anything, but I knew I couldn't. I opened the door and the scratching sound grew louder, echoing down the stairs. My heart was pounding in my chest as I climbed the narrow steps, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. When I reached the top, I shone the light around the attic, searching for the source of the noise. But the scratching continued. I followed the sound, weaving my way through the maze of boxes and furniture until I reached the far corner of the attic. There, hidden behind a stack of old paintings, was a small wooden door I hadn't noticed before. The door was old, the wood warped and splintered, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in years. The scratching sound was coming from behind it, but insistent, like something was trying to get out. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling, and slowly turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, narrow passageway that led to a small, hidden room. My flashlight flickered, the beam casting long shadows across the floor as I stepped inside. The room was small, barely big enough to stand in, and the walls were lined with old, faded wallpaper. The air was thick and musty, the smell almost overpowering. In the center of the room was a single, small bed, the sheets tattered and stained with age. But what caught my attention was the figure sitting on the bed. It was a woman, her skin pale and sickly, her hair matted and unkempt. She was hunched over, her back to me, and she was scratching at the wall, her fingers digging into the plaster.
Oh shit.
My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't just an animal or a figment of my imagination. This was real. I wanted to run, but I was unable to tear my eyes away from the figure in front of me. And then she turned around. Her eyes were wild, filled with a madness that sent a jolt of terror through me. Her face was gaunt, her cheeks hollow, and her lips were cracked and dry. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and filled with
Vaseline or something.
my blood run cold. She stared at me for a moment.
It's the chapstick, honey.
And then, without warning, she lunged at me.
Woo!
Barely managing to dodge her clawed at the air, her fingers twisted and gone. She was screaming. A high-pitched, inhuman sound.
I got a UAV for you, and
a sense of pure, unbridled terror. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest as I raced down the stairs, her screams still ringing in my ears. I didn't stop until I reached the front door, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the lock. When I finally got the door open, I ran outside, the cold night air hitting me like a slap in the face. I kept running until I was halfway down the street, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my mind reeling with what I had just seen. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't.
What
Instead,
is
I
it?
sat in my car staring at the house.
Nobody
What
said.
had just happened. The woman in the attic,
What
was she? How long had she been there? And why hadn't I noticed the hidden room before? I didn't have any answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay in that house. The next morning, I called the police. I didn't know how to explain what had happened, but I knew I couldn't go back into the house alone. When the officers arrived, I led them to the attic, my heart pounding in my chest as we climbed the stairs. The house was eerily silent, the only sound the creaking of the floorboards
Shout out
beneath our
to the
feet.
view.
I pointed out the hidden door, my hands trembling as I explained what I had seen. The officers exchanged a glance, their expressions skeptical, but they didn't say anything. They opened the door, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they stepped inside. The room was just as I had left it, small, cramped, and filled with the smell of decay. But the woman was gone. The bed was empty, the sheets still tattered and stained, but there was no sign of her. The officers searched the room, checking every corner, but there was nothing there. They didn't find any evidence of someone living in the attic, nor sign that the woman had ever been there. It was probably just a squatter, someone who had broken into the house and then fled when they realized that they moved in.
I got you, my boy.
I knew that wasn't true. The woman I had
You tried
seen
to jump
wasn't
the wall and
just a
got ran over.
squatter.
Helicopter?
There was something wrong with her, something that couldn't
Get
be
to the
explained
chopper!
by logic or reason. The police left after a few hours, telling me to call if I saw anything else unusual. But I could tell they didn't believe me. They thought I was
Bet,
just
we got the final
nervous
circle and all. Let's
by
go.
the old house and its creaks and groans.
I'm gonna buy a
But I
UAV.
knew what I had seen, and I knew that she was still out there.
Close to
Somewhere.
this buy
I
station.
tried to stay in the house after that, tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, that the woman in the attic was just a figment of my imagination. But the fear never went away. Every night I would lie in bed, straining to hear the slightest noise, the faintest scratch. The house was silent, but I could feel her presence like a shadow lurking just out of sight. I started having nightmares. Vivid, terrifying dreams where I was trapped in the attic, the woman's twisted face inches from mine, her hands clawing at my skin. I would wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, the fear so real that I could still feel it long after I had woken up. I knew I couldn't stay in the house any longer. The fear was too much, the sense of dread too overwhelming. I packed up my things, leaving most of it behind, and moved out within a week. I never went back. I don't know what happened to the woman in the attic or how long she had been there. Maybe she was a ghost, or maybe she was something else, something that defied explanation.
Somebody in the building.
Whoever she was, I hope she was gone. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying in bed, I can still hear the faint sound of scratching, the soft creak of a door.
Hell no.
And I wonder, just for a moment, if she's still out there, waiting for someone else to find her. If these stories gave you chills, don't forget to smash that like button and share the fear with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for more bone-chilling tales and hit the notification bell so you never miss a nightmarish view of them. Have your own haunted house experience. Love to hear your story. Remember, every home
Welcome
has
down,
a
Taz.
stay
So I'm talking about.
safe and sleep with one
Yeah.
eye open. See you in the next nightmare.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Somebody on the rooftop.
subliminal wording. I appreciate it. Gary.
Sit down, man.
Halloween night is always
Well,
Rooftop.
Halloween stories. I was in the restroom, y'all. My fault.
I was about to say welcome back.
Two guys on top of the rooftop. Two guys. Two different teams.
I was gonna say welcome back. Oh shit.
I did a little bit.
I was saying welcome back.
It took me so long. Fighting for our life. I know that's right. So we're doing 3 hours. Horror nightmare. Taco Bell. Not Taco Bell.
You know the late night, 24 hours it goes down.
Well, okay, well, I don't know what they sound like, so let's see what... She got excited with right.
Closing shifts at Taco Bell were always rough.
Oh, okay.
But that night was worse than it was just me, my...
Okay.
He sound like a big boy. Sound like big boy.
Oh, yeah, he a man. That's a man.
That's a real man.
A man? That's a real man.
Oh. What a strong man.
That is a real man.
He sound like he chop wood.
Yeah, he do. He got a beard. Sound like he chop wood.
He cut down trees. He climbed the trees and cut them down. He one of them.
And our manager, Melissa. 10 hours on our feet, orders nonstop, the fryer sputtering, the drive-through headset beeping in our ears like some endless alarm clock. By the time we locked the doors, the place was a mess. Grease clung to my skin, my back ached, and my stomach growled. None of us had eaten all shift. Let's sit for a second, Melissa said, pulling her headset off and rubbing her temples. We grabbed a booth near the window, unwrapping.
No, that was my chance.
What you doing up there, sis?
Just the hum of the
I thought you was up here. I seen you was at the building, but I didn't know you was inside the building. I was on top on the roof, and it was a nigga up there. I was trying to reach you.
When the pounding started, it was so sudden, so forceful, that my first thought was someone had crashed into the glass. But no, just a man standing inside, his fists slamming against the locked doors. The guy.
Why didn't he buy me back and he was right? Oh, he shot.
Not just drunk, though that was my first guess. His clothes were wrinkled, like he'd been wearing them for days. His hair was a mess, sticking up in odd directions. His eyes were wide, too wide, like he hadn't blinked in a while. Melissa sighed, wiping her hands on a napkin as she stood up. I'll handle it. She walked to the door, keeping it locked, and raised her voice through the glass.
Oh, the manager?
Sorry, we're closed.
Why they not buying me back?
Stepping closer. His breath fogged up the window.
Oh, they wanted
Please,
that.
I need to eat. Just real quick. We're closed, she repeated, firmer this time. He didn't move.
It's a dub.
A strange
I
silence
believe
stretched
in
between
him.
them.
They ain't buying
His
me
face
back.
just
So.
inches.
It's one guy.
Yeah.
One guy.
Then finally spoke, quieter this time.
Man got back here.
Melissa took a
Oh, now
step
they
back.
bought me back.
Sir, I
Good.
can't do that. You need to leave. He didn't argue. He just stood
Trying
there.
to see where they at.
His hands twitched at his sides. He glanced over his shoulder like he was checking for someone, then back at us.
I'm out of here.
I shivered.
Go!
Something about him made my skin crawl.
Shout out to
Come
your
sit back
brother.
down. My sister
I
muttered.
can't.
He's just so drunk.
Shout out to your brother. We ain't worried about them.
We ignored him and went back to eating, trying to shake the unease. But I kept glancing at the glass doors. He was still there.
Oh.
Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 20.
Damn!
He never left.
What?
He didn't knock again. Didn't yell or cause a scene. He just stood outside, sometimes pacing near the doors, sometimes wandering out into the parking lot, but always returning, like he was waiting for something. I checked the cameras. He never went to his car. He didn't seem to have one. He was just there. Maybe we should call security, my sister whispered. Melissa shook her head. For what? Loitering. I didn't like it. The way he watched the building made me feel like we were trapped in a fishbowl with nowhere to go but out. At one point, He wandered toward the bridge down the street, the one that overlooked the canyon. My stomach twisted. I half hoped he would just keep walking. But no. A few minutes later, he was back, closer than before. I had a bad feeling. After a while, I stopped checking the cameras. We had cleaning to do, and I just wanted to go home. My sister and I scrubbed down the fryer. Melissa counted the registers. The routine helped me forget, until I went to take the trash out.
That shit
The
can be
moment I
taken down in
stepped
the morning.
into the lobby, I glanced at the door. He was gone.
I was
Just
finna
like
go
that.
and troll some other people.
I
I'll be
froze,
back.
scanning the parking lot.
Alright.
Nothing. I looked at the street, the sidewalk, the bridge in the distance.
Oh,
No movement.
get off this place.
I ran to the back. Hey, that guy's gone.
Mm.
Melissa looked up from the register. Finally. My sister frowned. You
Hufflepuff?
sure? I nodded.
How
But
far?
I didn't see him leave. Melissa grabbed the keys. Let's check outside before we walk to our cars, just in case. We climbed the metal stairs that led to the roof. From up there, we could see everything. The parking lot, the street, even past the bridge. Nothing. No sign of him. Where the hell did he go? My sister murmured. We finished closing in record time. No one wanted to leave.
No, we finished
But the moment
closing
we
in
stepped
record
outside, I felt it
time.
again. That creeping sensation like we were being watched. We hurried to our cars, scanning the lot the whole way. My fingers clenched around my keys so tight my knuckles ached. My sister fumbled with her door. Melissa's hands were shaking. I kept waiting for something. A shadow, a noise, anything to tell me where that man had gone. But there was nothing. Just the dark. And the feeling that somewhere, somehow, he was still watching. That wasn't the only strange thing that happened at that Taco Bell. Years earlier, before my sister started working there, I had another unsettling night. It was late, just before closing, when a man came in. He looked excited, almost giddy, ordered food, chatted for a bit, said he was in town for something special. I handed him his bag, wished him a good night. He smiled. Thanks. Gotta fuel up before the jump. I thought nothing of it at the time. The next day I found out. A base jumper had died overnight. His parachute failed. He landed wrong and was stuck in the canyon until morning. The news said he had come from out of state, that he was alone, that he had grabbed food before heading to the bridge. I was the last person to talk to him, to hand him his final meal. And even though I hadn't known, even though there was nothing I could have done, I still wonder if I had said something different, if I had known what was about to happen.
Dang.
Would it have changed anything?
Hell no.
Or was he always meant to disappear into the dark?
What
I
kind
don't
of
know
shit?
why I still... Maybe it's because things worse. Maybe it's because we walked straight into something. Maybe it's
Hufflepuff.
Like, what is you saying?
Or maybe it's because even now,
Understand
I
what?
have no idea if we saved
What?
someone's life, barely escaped with our own.
Hey, like,
But I do know one thing. If Anna and I had ignored our instincts, we might not be here to tell the story. It was late. Way too late to still be driving. Anna and I had been on the road for hours, our road trip turning into an endurance test against exhaustion. We had left Atlanta that afternoon heading toward New Orleans, but somewhere along the way we'd taken a detour to avoid traffic, and now we were in the middle of nowhere. The road stretched out in front of us like an endless ribbon of asphalt, cutting through empty fields. No street lights, no signs of civilization, just the hum of the engine, the occasional flicker of Anna's phone screen as she tried, unsuccessfully, to load the map. Still nothing? I asked, gripping the wheel. Nothing. She sighed, tapping at her screen. No service out here. I told you we should have stayed on the main highway. I exhaled, rubbing a hand over my face. Yeah, well, that main highway had traffic backed up for miles. This was supposed to be faster. It's not faster if we're lost. She wasn't wrong.
No, dead ass.
My stomach growled loudly and I sighed again. Look, we just
It's
need to
not
find food and a
faster
place
if
to
we're
stretch our
lost.
legs. Then we can figure out where the hell we are. As if on cue, a green freeway sign appeared in the distance. its reflective letters glowing in our headlights. Exit 104, food, gas. My shoulders relaxed. There we go. Anna leaned forward, reading the small list of businesses. Gas station, Taco Bell, and some local diner. Fast food sounds good, I said, flipping on my blinker. Anna yawned. As long as it's actually open. It's almost midnight. We took the exit, following the road into what could barely be called a town. It was small, so small that calling it quiet didn't do it justice. It was dead. Most of the buildings were dark, their neon signs turned off. The diner was closed, the windows black. The gas station on the corner was the only thing still lit up, but the parking lot was empty except for one beat-up truck by the pumps. Taco Bell, though. Its sign was glowing. Open 24 hours was proudly displayed under the logo. The drive-through menu was lit up, and the fluorescent lights inside flickered slightly, but they were on. Anna glanced at me. You sure about this? We're already here. I pulled into the lot. It was empty. No other cars, no customers. Guess no one else is craving tacos at midnight, Anna muttered. I pulled up to the drive-through speaker, rolling down my window. Static crackled from the speaker before a deep male voice came through. Welcome to Taco Bell. Can I take your order? I opened my mouth to respond, then stopped. Somewhere in the background, beneath the static and the hum of the speaker, I heard something else. A scream. Muffled, distant, but unmistakably human. Anna heard it too. I saw the way she stiffened in her seat, her eyes snapping to mine. The scream cut off abruptly, then silence. I hesitated. Did you hear that? The speaker buzzed with more static before the man's voice returned flat.
Call the police, ho. It's a kidnapping, ho.
I frowned. Your sign says 24 hours. More silence. Then after a beat, the sign's wrong. We're closed.
You need to call the police, ho.
The man's voice wasn't just uninterested. It felt forced, like he was reciting a line. I glanced at Anna. She was gripping her phone now. Let's go, she whispered. But I didn't move. That scream was still echoing in my ears. Instead of driving off, I pulled around to the front of the building. The lobby was dark, but there were shapes moving inside, shadows shifting near the back. I don't like this, Anna muttered. I unbuckled my seatbelt. I just want to check. Are you insane? She hissed. You heard that scream. Let's go.
He robbing the store. Oh, he robbing the store.
Part of me said she was right, but my gut was screaming something different. From the car door, as soon as I stepped outside, the night air hit me, cold and thick, carrying the scent of fryer oil and something else I couldn't quite place. The Taco Bell felt wrong. I walked toward the glass doors, my heart pounding. The moment I got close, I saw him. A man stepped into view from the back of the restaurant. He wasn't wearing a Taco Bell uniform. He was in a dark hoodie, his sleeves pushed up to reveal tattooed forearms. His posture was stiff, unnatural. He didn't look like an employee. I knocked lightly. Hey man, you guys open? The man stared at me for a second too long before finally shaking his head. No. I pointed to the hours sign. It says, the sign's wrong. I studied his face. His expression was unreadable, but something about it felt off. And then behind him I saw it. A figure. Someone in the back, half hidden behind the soda machine. Their eyes were wide, terrified. They mouthed something to me. Help me. A wave of cold washed over me. The man at the door followed my gaze. Then slowly, he stepped forward, blocking my view. His mouth curled into a small, forced smile. You should go. I didn't move. Then, another scream from inside. This one was louder, desperate. Anna heard it. She threw the passenger door open. James, get in the car. The man at the door's expression changed. His face twisted into something almost angry. Leave, he ordered. His voice had dropped, deeper, more threatening. My heart hammered. Run. I took a slow step back, then another. The man didn't move. He just watched me. I turned, sprinted to the car. Anna had already climbed into the driver's seat. The second I slammed the door, she floored it. We didn't stop. Not until we were a mile down the road, back on the freeway. Anna's hands were shaking on the wheel. James, what the hell was that? I was still breathing hard. My hands clenched into fists. I don't know. She swallowed. We have to call the cops. I nodded. I didn't care if it was nothing. I wasn't taking the chance. We pulled over and dialed 911. 20 minutes later, we saw the flashing lights of a police car speeding toward the Taco Bell. We waited, watched, and then they brought him out. The man in the hoodie, in handcuffs. An officer approached our car. You the ones who called? We nodded. The officer let out a breath. You did good. Turns out this guy tried to rob the place. Knocked out one of the employees and was holding the other in the back. I felt sick. If we hadn't stopped, if we hadn't called. The officer shook his head. You probably saved a life tonight. Anna and I drove away in silence. Neither of us could eat. And to this day, I still wonder, what if we hadn't listened to our instincts?
If anything, they should have just called the police instead of trying to be nosy.
I was ready to leave home.
They should have just called the police first
in my
thing.
parents' house had grown
Doing all that
unbearable,
extra.
and I knew I needed space, distance, anything to get away from the looming pressure. I packed up and moved to Texas, settling about 10 hours away from
shit
everything
in Texas, boy. People move to Texas and be mad as hell.
But I wasn't there to feel comfortable. I was there to start fresh. Texas was overwhelming at first, especially with the bustling energy of a city like Dallas. Everything felt loud, fast, and unfamiliar. But soon enough, the social media world opened up to me. I began adding people on Facebook, people who lived in the surrounding area, people with interests that matched mine. A few weeks later, I found myself connecting with Rachel, a girl who quickly became my closest friend. We were both young, both looking for an escape from our lives, and, admittedly, both a little reckless. We spent our days hanging out, smoking, drinking, and losing ourselves in music. I had a boyfriend at the time. He seemed perfect at first, but I quickly realized he was controlling.
Oh my God,
he didn't like the people I hung out with. He didn't like me going anywhere when he wasn't around.
You like it?
I just didn't want to see them. Rachel worked at Taco Haven, a
You like
food place that's
Am I on
I'd wait for the shift, usually after 2 a.m. The place was practically deserted by then, except for the occasional late-night drive-through customer. I'd hang around
Oh my God.
and mess around on my phone until she was off work.
Incredible. That's
One
amazing.
night, around midnight,
I wanted to
a
make
man
them
walked in.
Jones where it's like home
He
sweet
was
home.
about 6 feet 4 inches,
You like Jack?
wearing a long,
Yeah, you like
green
Jack?
coat. His thick, scraggly gray beard nearly touched
Oh my
his chest.
God. Great.
He walked
Yo,
over
it's
to a
the
table across
facial
from me and sat down.
expressions.
I could feel my stomach
Wait,
tighten.
Tad and Pause.
Something about him
Wait,
didn't sit
Tad?
right, but I tried.
Oh shit. It's the facial expressions for me. Oh shit, that's a real nigga.
Oh my God. That's the face I'm making right now.
My eyebrows always go like that. Good lord.
Requesting recon overhead.
So good.
I need to get off camera. Bunny be paying too much attention to the facial expressions. I'm getting off camera. That's how she. Where's your face? I can't see you.
And that Rick and Morty look. I think that shit so. That mouth.
We on the same team, you stupid fuck.
Oh my.
Not you on my back.
Tried to brush it off. I sent Rachel a message, half joking, half worried. This guy is giving me the creeps. Rachel quickly replied, "Oh my God, yeah."
Oh my God, yeah.
He is. She sent me an emoji with wide eyes.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
kept
yeah,
my head
yeah.
down,
Oh,
staring at my phone. Rachel, standing behind the counter, watched the man for a moment before walking over. She was small, only about 5 feet 1 inch, and this guy towered over her as she approached. "Excuse me, sir," she said, trying to sound polite but firm. "You can't stay here unless you're ordering something."
You can't say
The man
that.
didn't respond. He just got up slowly, shuffling toward the counter. Rachel quickly handed him a drink cup and he slapped some crumpled money down on the counter. After grabbing the cup, he sat back down in the same spot. Rachel looked over at me with a confused, uneasy expression, but didn't say anything.
Tyco
Started to
Bell.
clean up behind the counter as the man sipped his drink, but I couldn't stop glancing at him. He was staring at me. I could feel his eyes boring into me like lasers. By 1:30 a.m., Rachel had finished cleaning and was standing by the counter, her phone in hand.
That's like me
I
saying,
felt a little safer, thinking the
teriyaki,
man would leave soon.
teriyaki boba tea.
But instead, I watched him stand up and move closer. It was getting creepy now. "Hey, you ready?" I asked Rachel, already standing up to
Teriyaki
throw my
boba
drink
tea.
away. "Yeah, let's go," she replied, walking toward the front door. As we were about to step outside, I heard the unmistakable sound of a chair scraping across the floor. I glanced back and saw the man following us. My heart dropped. "Run," I whispered urgently to Rachel. "Now." We quickly dashed around the back of the building, trying to head toward her apartment. But as we turned a corner, my phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was just a random message, but then my heart skipped a beat as I saw who it was from. A new message. From a profile I didn't recognize. James Jameson. No profile picture. The name itself felt fake. I opened the message and my stomach lurched. The first line sent a chill down my spine. "Don't run from me. Wheels are faster than you can run." I felt a cold wave of terror as I read the next part. "I know where you and Rachel live." Attached to the message were multiple photos. Photos of Rachel and me at different places, separate occasions. There was one of me walking my dog in the park, another of me getting coffee at a local cafe. A picture of Rachel and me in the mall, browsing the shelves.
Put
Each
the
photo was
GPR
creepy,
here.
uncomfortably intimate. And then came the worst part. The message
They
that made
didn't.
my
They
heart
didn't.
stop.
Must have did some shit too.
I know your full name, your address, your university, everything. I shoved my phone into my pocket, trembling. I looked at Rachel, and I could see the same panic in her eyes. The headlights behind us flickered on. I turned around just as a white van crept closer. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing Rachel's arm and pulling her forward. "It's him! It's him!" We sprinted harder, our legs burning with every step. Rachel's apartment was only a block away, but with the van following us, I didn't feel like we'd make it. The van's headlights grew brighter and I heard the engine rev as it got closer. We reached the stairs to Rachel's apartment, but she tripped on the step. I didn't stop. I helped her up quickly and we fumbled for the keys. My hands shook as I searched my bag. "Where are they?" Rachel hissed, panic rising in her voice. "Where are the keys?" Finally, my fingers brushed against them, and I shoved the key into the lock. Just as the door opened, I heard the screech of the van's brakes. The man was here. "Go!" I yelled, shoving Rachel inside the door. We barely managed to get the door shut before his foot wedged in, trying to stop us from locking him out. But with a hard shove, we got the door closed just in time. Outside, the man let out a deep, wheezing laugh. It was the kind of laugh you hear from someone who knows they've got you cornered. It chilled me to
No,
the
1v1 failed.
Rachel grabbed her phone, calling 911. Her voice was shaky as she explained the situation, but we could hear him outside, breathing heavily, laughing like a maniac. I could hear footsteps on the other side of the house, and Rachel and I exchanged terrified glances. "Shh," I whispered. "We need to hide." We rushed to the closet in the back hall, squeezing inside. It was cramped, but we barely fit, huddling together as the man's footsteps grew louder. "Come out. Come out," he muttered under his breath. I love it when they play hard to get.
Oh.
Rachel was shaking violently. I tried to keep quiet, but every inch of me screamed in terror. Suddenly we heard a loud crash, a vase or something being thrown, and I couldn't stop the scream that escaped my mouth. The footsteps grew closer, but at the same time I heard sirens in the distance. They were getting closer too. When the door to the closet finally opened, I was ready to collapse. But instead, I was met with bright lights and the voices of police officers. They had found us. The man was arrested, and we later learned the full extent of his plan. In his van, they found rope, duct tape, knives, and a vial of rubies. We were lucky. So damn lucky. If the police hadn't arrived when they did, I don't even want to think about what could have happened to us.
Let's try this new tree.
I never used to believe in ghost stories. If you asked me back then, I would have laughed and told you that the scariest thing at Taco Bell was dealing with drunk customers at 2 a.m.
Nah, that used to be me, baby.
I don't laugh about that kind of stuff
I was
anymore.
polite though.
I was 20
I wanted
at the
extra
time,
food.
working the closing shift at a Taco Bell just outside of Houston.
Oh.
It wasn't my dream job or anything, but it paid the bills while I took night classes at the community college. The place was open till 3 a.m., and those late night shifts were always weird. You'd get the usual mix, stoners with the munchies, exhausted truckers, and the occasional Karen demanding fresh chalupas like her life depended on it. Nothing, and I mean nothing, was as strange as what happened one Thursday night. That night it was just me and my coworker, Marcus. The dinner rush had died down, and by 2:50 a.m. we were basically just waiting for the clock to hit closing time. The restaurant was empty, the kitchen was mostly cleaned, and I was already picturing myself driving home with the windows down, music blasting. Then, right at 2:55 a.m., 5 minutes before closing, the drive-thru headset beeped. I groaned. "You've got to be kidding me." Marcus laughed, leaning against the counter. "Watch. It's probably some drunk dude ordering 100 tacos." I sighed, adjusting my headset. "Welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get for you?" Silence. I glanced at the monitor that showed the drive-thru lane. A car was sitting at the order box, just barely visible under the dim yellow lights. But something felt off. The driver's side window was still up. Usually people roll it down before we even finish greeting them, but this car just sat there, engine humming softly. I tried again. "Whenever you're ready, go ahead and order." More silence. I looked at Marcus. "Yo, check the screen. This dude isn't saying anything."